The 2026 Tony Awards were supposed to be predictable. The biggest stars showed up, the red carpet was packed, the standing ovations came right on schedule. On the surface, it looked like just another celebration of Broadway's best. But beneath all the applause, something much bigger was happening. A TV series that had already been canceled somehow fought its way back and conquered Broadway. A legendary actor stepped onto the stage and made Tony Awards history at 80 years old. A decades-old play suddenly became the most dominant production of the entire season, and one victory quietly ended a drought that had lasted nearly 4 decades, yet surprisingly few people were talking about it. By the end of the night, the biggest story wasn't who won. It was what these victories revealed about where Broadway is headed next. Because while audiences were focused on the trophies, the theater industry may have been witnessing the start of an entirely new era. And it all began with a musical that wasn't even supposed to be here. If there was one winner that perfectly captured the unpredictability of the night, it was Schmigadoon.
All I said is we should bail on the hike. I didn't mean us in general. I just meant the hike.
Just a few years ago, the project wasn't even part of Broadway's future. It began as a quirky musical comedy series on Apple TV+, poking fun at classic Broadway shows while simultaneously celebrating everything audiences love about them. The series developed a loyal fan base and earned praise for its clever writing, catchy songs, and star-studded cast. But despite the positive reviews, the show's television journey came to an abrupt halt. After 2 seasons, Apple canceled the series, leaving fans disappointed and wondering whether the story had reached its final curtain. For most shows, that's where the story ends. Not this one. Instead of fading away, Schmigadoon pulled off something almost nobody saw coming. The series was transformed into a full Broadway musical, giving the property an entirely new life. Even then, expectations remained cautious. Broadway is filled with ambitious productions that never quite connect with audiences, and many industry observers believed other contenders had a much clearer path to victory. One of those contenders was The Lost Boys. The vampire-inspired musical had generated enormous buzz throughout the season. Its elaborate staging, striking visuals, and devoted fan support made it seem like the kind of production that could dominate the awards conversation. As Tony night approached, plenty of theater fans expected it to walk away with the evening's biggest prize. Then the envelope was opened, and everything changed. Schmigadoon was announced as the winner of Best Musical. Suddenly, the former streaming series that wasn't even supposed to exist anymore had become Broadway's most celebrated new musical, and the victories didn't stop there. The production also claimed Tony Awards for Best Book of a Musical, Best Original Score, and Best Orchestrations. By the end of the night, Schmigadoon had secured 4 major awards and firmly established itself as one of the defining success stories of the season. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A show created as a loving parody of Broadway had just defeated Broadway's biggest competitors. What started as a playful tribute to classic musicals had become one of them. The win also delivered an unexpected milestone for legendary television producer Lorne Michaels. Known for shaping comedy through decades of television success, Michaels suddenly found himself adding Tony-winning producer to an already remarkable resume. Almost immediately, social media lit up with reactions. Many fans couldn't help but point out the obvious twist. A series that had been canceled was now standing at the very top of Broadway. Some joked that executives might be rethinking their decision. Others celebrated the victory as proof that great ideas don't always disappear when a network moves on. And in many ways, that's what made the win resonate so strongly. It wasn't just a victory for one musical. It was a reminder that in entertainment, a project's first ending isn't always its final chapter. The story of Schmigadoon could have ended with a cancellation notice. Instead, it ended with a standing ovation and Broadway's highest honor. But as surprising as that comeback was, it wasn't actually the biggest story of the night. There was another production quietly doing something far more dominant and far more complete. Death of a Salesman didn't just win awards, it took over the entire conversation around Broadway. By the end of the night, it had collected 6 Tony Awards, making it the most awarded production of the entire season, not just in one category, but across multiple layers of the craft that define theater at its highest level. What made its run so striking wasn't just the number of wins, but how evenly it spread across every corner of production. It earned Best Revival of a Play, instantly cementing its place as the definitive reinterpretation of Arthur Miller's classic for a new generation. Behind the scenes, Joe Mantello's direction was recognized as a major driving force. His approach didn't just revisit the original text, it reshaped how audiences experienced it, turning familiar material into something that felt urgent again. Laurie Metcalf also delivered one of the most talked about performances of the night, earning acting honors that reinforced her reputation as one of the most consistent forces in contemporary theater. Her role became a focal point of the revival, grounding the production in emotional intensity that critics repeatedly highlighted throughout the season. season. And it wasn't just the headline awards. Death of a Salesman Times showed strength in design, staging, and technical execution, pulling in recognition across categories that often split attention between multiple productions. Instead, this time, the attention kept circling back to the same title. That level of dominance led many critics to describe the revival as more than just a successful production. To them, it felt like a statement, a reminder that even in a season filled with bold new ideas and experimental works, there is still immense power in timeless storytelling when it's executed at the highest level. Some even argued that its success revealed something deeper about Broadway audiences themselves, that no matter how far the industry evolves, certain stories continue to resonate across generations in ways newer productions sometimes struggle to match. But even as Death of a Salesman quietly became the most decorated production of the night, the conversation was about to shift again. Because, while one classic conquered Broadway, another legendary figure was about to make history in a way no one could ignore. If there was a single moment that made the entire room pause, it was John Lithgow's win. Going into the night, the Best Actor in a Play category was stacked with heavyweight names. Among them was Nathan Lane, a Broadway icon in his own right, alongside other critically acclaimed performances that made the race feel genuinely unpredictable. But when the envelope was opened, the result landed with a kind of quiet shock. John Lithgow had won Best Actor for Time's Giant. At 80 years old, he didn't just take home the award, he made history. He became the oldest actor ever to win in that category, a milestone that immediately shifted the tone of the entire ceremony. The reaction inside Radio City Music Hall reflected exactly what the moment meant. This wasn't just another competitive win. It felt like recognition of a lifetime of work compressed into a single standing ovation. When Lithgow stepped up to the stage, the energy shifted again. His acceptance speech wasn't flashy or overly theatrical. Instead, it carried a reflective weight. He spoke about more than 5 decades in theater, tracing a path through years of performances, risks, and reinventions that had led him to that exact moment. There was a sense that the award wasn't just for Time's Giant, but for everything that came before it. Every role, every stage, every performance that built the foundation for this recognition. And that's what made the win resonate so strongly with audiences watching at home. It wasn't just about talent in a single season. It was about endurance, consistency, and a career that had never faded from relevance. Social media quickly amplified the moment, turning it into one of the most talked about highlights of the entire night. Clips of his reaction and speech circulated widely, with viewers pointing out how rare it is for an artist to reach that level of recognition so far into their career and still feel at the center of the cultural conversation. More than anything, Lithgow's victory became a reminder that Broadway doesn't just celebrate new stars, it also rewards those who keep showing up decade after decade, refining their craft until moments like this arrive. But while everyone was celebrating Broadway veterans, another winner quietly broke a barrier that had lasted nearly 4 decades. After the standing ovation for John Lithgow faded, the night took a turn that felt quieter at first, but carried a weight that grew the longer you thought about it. Liberation was announced as Best Play. On the surface, it felt like another major win in a strong season. The production had already been building serious momentum throughout the year, boosted even further by its Pulitzer Prize recognition. Critics had consistently pointed to its writing, structure, and emotional depth as some of the sharpest work in contemporary theater. But the significance of this win went far beyond critical praise. Behind the applause was a milestone that many viewers didn't immediately realize until the conversation began spreading afterward. With this victory, Bess Wohl became part of a rare and historic shift in Broadway history. It marked the first time in decades that an American woman had won Best Play since 1989. That statistic alone reframed the entire moment. What might have seemed like a standard award announcement suddenly became something much larger, a reflection of how slowly some parts of the industry evolve, even as the stories on stage continue to push forward. When Wohl stepped up to accept the award, the tone shifted again. Her speech wasn't framed around spectacle or shock. Instead, it carried a quiet, emotional intensity, acknowledging the journey behind the work and the significance of finally reaching this level of recognition. In the hours that followed, many viewers admitted they hadn't fully grasped the historical context in real time. It was only after the broadcast that the weight of the moment truly settled in, as the rarity of the achievement began circulating across social media and theater discussions. For some, it represented progress finally catching up to talent that had always been there. For others, it highlighted just how long-standing certain gaps in recognition have been within the industry. Either way, Liberation didn't just win Best Play, it shifted the conversation around who gets celebrated on Broadway and why. And if the awards were already rewriting parts of Broadway history, the ceremony itself was about to take a turn that no one saw coming. Before a single award was handed out, there was already one decision people were questioning: Pink as host. On paper, it seemed like an unusual choice for Broadway's biggest night. She's known for stadium-level pop performances, aerial stunts, and high-energy tours, but hosting a theater award show comes with a different kind of pressure, a different rhythm, a different audience expectation. But the moment the broadcast began, those doubts started to shift. Pink didn't just appear on stage. She arrived in a way that immediately set the tone for the entire evening. She opened the show suspended in the air, descending into Radio City Music Hall in a Peter Pan-inspired entrance that felt more like a full theatrical production than a traditional awards show intro. And then came the opening number, a massive, Broadway-style reimagining of Lady Marmalade built specifically for the ceremony, blending pop spectacle with theater energy. The stage filled quickly, turning into a full ensemble moment that pulled in performers from across the Broadway season. Just when the energy couldn't climb any higher, Neil Patrick Harris made a surprise appearance, adding another layer of star power and theater history into the mix. What followed was a performance that felt less like a monologue-heavy awards opening and more like a live Broadway celebration built for television. Big vocals, constant movement, and a level of production that kept the momentum locked in from the very first minute. Online reactions moved fast. Many viewers praised Pink for bringing a fresh kind of energy to the Tonys. Some even called it one of the most entertaining hosting performances in recent memory, pointing out how seamlessly she managed to balance spectacle with genuine respect for the Broadway community. Clips of the opening number spread quickly, with audiences highlighting how engaged the entire theater felt from the start of the broadcast. For a ceremony that sometimes struggles to hold attention beyond the awards themselves, this opening changed the tone completely. But not everyone agreed. A smaller group of critics felt the production leaned too heavily on spectacle at the expense of pacing. Some argued that while the opening was visually impressive, the overall ceremony still had uneven moments as the night progressed. That divide became one of the most interesting conversations surrounding the event because it revealed something deeper than just opinions about a host. It showed how differently audiences and critics can experience the same performance. And that split perfectly captures the biggest lesson from the entire night. Because when you step back from all the individual winners, the standing ovations, and the viral moments, a bigger picture starts to form. Broadway didn't enter this season in a comfortable place. There had been ongoing questions about ticket sales, audience turnout, and whether live theater could continue to compete for attention in an era dominated by streaming and short-form content. The pressure wasn't just creative, it was structural. And yet, the 2026 Tony Awards delivered something that felt like a response to all of it. Not through speeches or statements, but through the wins themselves. Revival productions like Ragtime reminded audiences why older material still carries power when it's reimagined with care. Its success proved that classic musicals aren't fading away. They're evolving, finding new relevance with modern audiences who are still willing to show up for them. At the same time, Liberation represented the opposite direction of Broadway's growth, a bold, contemporary play that didn't rely on legacy or familiarity, but instead pushed forward with a distinct voice and perspective. Its recognition showed that new writing isn't just surviving on Broadway, it's still capable of defining the conversation. Then there was Schmigadoon, a project that didn't even begin as a stage production. A show that moved from television cancellation to Broadway victory, challenging the traditional path a musical is supposed to take. Its success suggested that unconventional origins are no longer a disadvantage in theater. They might actually be an advantage. Across the night, these wins didn't exist in isolation. They formed a pattern. Historic achievements, unexpected victories, emotional speeches, and career-defining performances all contributed to a ceremony that felt unusually energetic compared to recent years. Even the surprises seemed to feed into a larger sense of renewal rather than confusion. What emerged wasn't a single dominant trend, but a balance. Nostalgia on one side, innovation on the other. Legacy productions standing alongside new voices. Established stars sharing space with unexpected breakout moments. And together, they created a version of Broadway that feels less like it's choosing between the past and the future, and more like it's trying to hold both at the same time. That may be the most important outcome of the entire night. Not who won the most awards, but the sense that Broadway, despite its challenges, is still capable of surprising everyone watching. When the lights finally dimmed on the 2026 Tony Awards, the story that remained wasn't as simple as a list of winners. The headlines will say Schmigadoon took Best Musical. The statistics will point to Death of a Salesman as the most dominant production of the night. The history books will remember John Lithgow standing at 80 years old, making history with a performance that felt felt like the culmination of an entire career. They'll also remember Bess Wohl, whose win with Liberation carried a significance that went far beyond a single trophy. And for many viewers, the opening number alone might outlive the rest of the ceremony, with Pink turning a traditional awards show into something closer to a full-scale Broadway spectacle. But none of those moments stand alone, because the real takeaway from the night isn't just who won or what was performed, it's that Broadway itself feels like it's shifting in real time. A canceled streaming series didn't disappear. It transformed into a Tony-winning musical. A decades-old play didn't fade into memory. It returned as the most awarded production of the season. New voices didn't just enter the conversation. They broke through long-standing barriers that had held for decades. And throughout it all, unexpected performances, emotional speeches, and surprising victories kept reshaping what audiences thought they understood about the state of theater today. If this ceremony revealed anything, it's that Broadway's next chapter isn't following a predictable script. It's being rewritten, moment by moment, in ways no one fully saw coming.